Hello, Craig.
It's on you, it's all on me. Can't you see? It's on you, it's all on me. You and me, can't you? It's on you, it's on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care.
Sorry, man. You caught me in the
Hi,
middle of
Jeff.
a laugh when I pushed record, and I was like, "Damn it! Oh well." I do think in
Hey.
200 and whatever episodes, I do think that I have not started one by laughing and saying, "Hey, Craig."
Yeah.
So this is new.
So-
This is new. We uncharted
Nice.
territory.
Well
here.
done. I was like, what the hell's going on? All right. Hey, we'll just
when
start right in.
can't-
This
we
is
laugh because we don't
podcast.
want to cry, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is Podcast versus Everyone, episode 202. I'm Craig Powers. With me, as usual, Jeff Newser. Hey, Jeff. Yeah.
That's me.
Glad you have a reason to laugh. Jeff, I don't know about you, but the biggest game I watched this week was just on a Zoom call.
On a
of
Zoom
a
call.
court proceedings.
Yeah. I was getting to work this morning
With a
and I was
folksy-
walking to
folksy-
my
Colfax judge.
yeah. I was walking to my box and just as teachers do in the morning, checking my box, and ran another teacher, crossed paths with another teacher, said, "Hey, big win for you guys yesterday." And I'm thinking, was there a game? What is he talking about? And then it was like, oh yeah, it was the court case, like big win in the court case. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, yes, that's good. And I'm glad. And it's pretty much what I expected, but also I'm like, God damn it. This is what we've been reduced to, right? Yay for court victories.
Hey,
'Cause this is what we got right now.
Yeah, I wore I got my new home field bomber jacket. And so I wore that to drop my daughter off at kindergarten, the walk to kindergarten. So
Yeah.
and
And then you sat there with the bomber jacket on while the court case was going, and you're like, did you? It was the middle of the day, so you probably didn't crack a beer during the proceedings, but
No, I'm feeling pretty shitty. I haven't cracked a beer in a while. I think since like Friday or something.
yeah,
I think I maybe had one during the Cal game, but it's been sparse drinking.
yeah.
Not just hopefully I don't have a massive coughing fit on this. I can feel it. But yeah, it was I sat there on that Zoom call the entire time, and I was like almost 3 hours. And
you were one of the lucky 300.
Yeah, because I logged in like 10 minutes early. Because I know that Zoom's got those limits,
Yeah,
Because
you got in.
our company adopted Zoom, and it's like a big issue, like over like Teams. They're always talking about the limits that people can have on the calls and stuff. And so I knew I had to get in early, and sure enough, and it was funny. Like, you could scroll through the list of names on there, and it was like Cougs fan people and just like ESPN writers and like and just like Northwest kind of journalist people and stuff like that. I was just seeing the roster. It was pretty funny. But yeah, it was wild. Obviously, you couldn't have like a more Colfax judge out there with Judge Libby, however you say it.
I think it's Libby, but yeah.
Yeah, Gary Libby. He starts off talking about Colfax ghosts and stuff. Like it was so funny. Like he's just kind of rambling, and that's how we kick off the the court proceedings, and I'm just like, man, like the it was funny because like the WSU and Oregon State representation, the guy who mostly talked as Oregon State's general counsel, he definitely understood how to talk to the judge in kind of a more of like a straightforward manner and not use how lawyers like to talk with big words, big
Right.
words that like only if you're a lawyer you would ever use. Like they even made fun of UW using the word atextual, which is just a really silly word that no one ever like there's just so few times in your life when you would ever use the word
Yes.
atextual. And then he he made the joke that, oh, I had to look up what it was, and Libby goes, oh, what does it mean? He's like, I still don't think I know. I'm like, yeah, you do, dude. You just try to play
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
You try to paint them a certain way, and honestly, like with a judge in Colfax is not a bad idea. And then, but they laid out the same argument that they laid out in September. Like it was no different, really. It's like, hey, they set a precedent by kicking UCLA, USC, and Colorado off of the board of director, the voting board, when they gave notice. And that is how the bylaws have been interpreted. And that's pretty straightforward, And then they also, pointed out that having 10 versus 2 could lead to harm to WSU and Oregon State, which is obvious. I don't think there's a lot of things that the voting tech could do to help themselves on the way out that would not serve a still existing conference. And it's not that crazy to think that they would do that because they bailed on the conference to begin with for money. So, like, it's not that far fetched. But then Pac-12 gets up; they don't even want to be there. And honestly, the reason they're there is because it was fucking Kaliakov that called, however you say his fucking name, Kaliakov, something like that. He's the one. The conference called this meeting with all 12 when precedent had been set that they were not inviting the ones that were notified that they were going to leave. And that's what kicked off WSU and Oregon State filing the lawsuit. And so it's just the Pac-12 though was like, once UW entered it, which they did after that first hearing, entered it as basically a representative of the other ones. And then at the same time, they were trying to say that the case could be dismissed because all of those other universities were sovereign, had like sovereign immunity because they were from other sovereign states. And Libby said no to that because he said UW was a good proxy for them, a good argument. Like they were arguing on their behalf. And the WSU Council actually did a very good job laying out why that dismissal would have been stupid or whatever. But the Pac-12 gets up there, just a bunch of nonsense. Like it's just a bunch of nonsense. And the funniest thing is when so they're just rambling. Like you could tell he doesn't want to be there. He really, like, the Pac-12 really. This is a fight between, like, it really is a fight between the schools. It's not really a fight between the conference at this point. Like, the conference is just like, whatever, you're just going to tell us what to do. So, like, it doesn't matter at this point. The conference just wants to make sure that whatever fight is happening, like, the games can still be played and all that shit, That's all that's all they care about. But and that their employees can be paid and all that stuff. But he gets up there, just like, his argument is so flimsy. There was nothing of substance to it. And then he mentions WSU and Oregon State, or he mentions the future of the conference, and then Judge Libby says, "Well, what is the future of the conference?" And the fucking Pac-12 council says, "Well, that's up to WSU and Oregon State." It's like,
I mean,
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
That is true.
That's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying. We're the only two. We're it. We're the two that are left.
Exactly. So you're saying it is up to us.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
I mean, that seemed to be like just sort of the recurring theme was that, all the talking that the lawyers on the other side did, just really underscored like how they really had no argument, right? Like it's, I read John Canzano had a piece that he wrote yesterday afternoon or evening, anyway, after it all went down, and he said that he was texting with another lawyer that he knew who was watching the proceedings, and basically the lawyer said, if you have to talk this much and ramble this much about things that are only sort of kind of related, and then maybe come back to your point for a second and then start rambling about other stuff, like really all it is just, sort of revealing that, you don't have really
that's what
much of anything.
UW was trying to frame it as giving them this power will cause harm to the departing 10 schools. And that is not what the lawsuit is about. And the lawsuit's about how the Pac-12 had operated under the bylaws for the previous 13 months before they called this weird meeting that went against what they had been doing for 13 months. And that's what the lawsuit about. Lawsuit isn't about, well, what would WSU and Oregon State do? But if you want to get in that argument, what have the other 10 already done? They've already left. They've already caused harm to WSU and Oregon State. They've already chased money. So if anyone, if there's any group between these two groups that we can say is going to do something like that, it's them, because they've already done it.
That's sort of how everything goes right now, right? The thing that I would do, I'm going to accuse you of potentially doing it, right?
And the lawyers, and then the statements after, the bullshit coming back to the mental health and the well-being of the students, the student athletes. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? You signed up for these conferences. We are going to have to fly 16,000 miles a year for a football season. God knows how many. You've said yourself they're going to miss 5 or 6 extra days of school a year. They're going to be on the road. We've heard talking about them just staying on the road for weeks at a time, because it's not like, so just be in like a fucking Airbnb for 3 weeks playing teams in the Midwest or the East Coast. Like it's like, stop fucking calling that point. You guys obviously don't care about that. You've obviously put money over your student athletes' well-being, and you've never paid them outside of a scholarship and a meal stipend. So fucking just shut the fuck up and stop acting like you give a fuck about the students. Like it's nonsense. And that was the crux of the argument. And also he tried to kill time by just going like word for word on the bylaws and like breaking down every fucking word and what it means and comparing it to the pre-2011 bylaws. And the language changed like this, so that the meaning must have been this. And it was just like, you're just so trying to like, it's like, when you're in high school and it's like debate. And so they give you a side of a debate. You don't get to choose, and you end up with the one that like sucks. And like, you got to try to figure out a way to argue it. Yeah. Bullshit. And like, and like I was a history major, which like is a fucking like, that feeds right into law school. Like I considered law school at one point, like pretty seriously at one point. But like, you learn how to bullshit as a history major. Like,
sure.
And like it's this is what they're doing. But he had this like very like how you could not, if you had to like create a UW lawyer in a factor like like the UW like vibe and put it in a lawyer, like you just couldn't have made a better person. And I'm like, you are in the wrong place, buddy. And then when they had the like second and third rounds, oh my God, it's like someone texted him. It's like, dude,
yeah,
like this is not the right place for this. He was like trying to make jokes
working.
and he was trying to be folksy and he was calling back to the Ghost reference and stuff like that.
right.
Like it was just like you're falling flat. Like this,
Yeah.
you're not like you're not. I mean, I feel like in this type of litigation, having a rapport with the judge is like a big thing, and like they just weren't having that. But yeah, it was kind of funny. You just knew where it was going from the moment that the Pac-12 lawyer and the UW lawyers came up, because the judge had just such more pointed and aggressive questions at them.
Yep.
Like he just you knew what was on his mind. Like he's like, you have a lot of mind changing here. Like you're gonna have to do a lot.
Yeah.
So he gave them that opportunity, and they did. There was really nothing like to the in fairness to those lawyers. Like there was not a lot. Like the argument for precedent of how what Folksy Livey said is like, my dad told me that he was like, your actions speak. Well, he said a different word, but it was like your actions speak louder than words or whatever, basically. He said conduct is more important than what you say. And so he's saying, hey, like this is how the Pac-12 has operated.
Right.
And also, and I think to the point of harm, he said, you're fine. If you're worried about that, the OSU and Oregon State have the voting power, but they have to tell you about the meetings and they have to let you go to them. So they have to listen to you talk. And so he threw them that. Obviously, they immediately pointed out that they're going to appeal, and they already have appealed to the state Supreme Court of Washington. So this won't end. They're just, I mean, honestly, even if they're going to drag this out as long as they can, because if they drag this out until they leave, then they're going to be getting their money all along, and that doesn't really matter to them.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't imagine it would drag on all that long, to be honest. I mean, obviously the state
Supreme Court doesn't have to hear it.
Yeah, I mean they can decide pretty quickly. It's the thing. Okay, so I'm not a lawyer, so let's establish that right away.
Lawyers.
But I've tried to sort of pay attention to lawyers' thoughts on this stuff, and obviously also lawyers are experts in different things. So just because someone is a lawyer and they have opinions on this doesn't necessarily mean they actually know what they're talking about either. So whatever. Yeah, I think
I know some lawyers that work in compliance. I'm not going to.
Yes. So I don't, but I think the thing that I've seen that is sort of like, pretty roundly understood is that, I mean, no matter what, sort of lawyer you're in, appeals are sort of the same thing. And it's, it's essentially you're no longer really arguing the merits of the case by that point. You're arguing that something was wrong, right? Like something was decided wrong, or something a decision was made along the way that was wrong, or whatever, right? And so I've seen a number of people just sort of point out that he seemed to kind of be letting them talk and talk and talk and talk so that they could just sort of get it all out, and they couldn't argue, later on that
we didn't get to say this.
Yeah, that they were somehow denied an opportunity to, to talk about, this or that or whatever. And he gave them a chance to make, you said, look, this was really about the bylaws, but he gave them the floor to make their argument about harm. And that's what they're really going for, right? Like that seems to be the thing that they are trying to hang their argument on, is that they'll be harmed.
He tried to make them say what they think WSU and Oregon State would do, but WSU, they would obviously, the lawyers are going to say something like that. You know, they're
Yep.
not going to like, they're potentially, you know, get in trouble for saying something like it.
Right.
But the fun, probably one of the funniest moments of the UW lawyer is, Libby asked him if he thought that a team leaving a conference, or I think he may have said UW specifically, if a team leaves a conference, does that cause harm to the conference, or announces they're leaving? And
Yeah.
the lawyer straight face said, I don't think so. It's like, come on, come on.
It's
I would
like,
love to hear.
this
I would love
conference
to
is
hear the
about
argument.
to die because of that. Like, come on.
I would love to hear the argument that UW and Oregon leaving didn't cause harm to the conference.
Right. Like they're
When
yeah. I would love to hear someone try.
every other
to
team
argue
but
that.
two left immediately after they did, or
Yes.
USC and UCLA leaving. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of why it's fitting, I think, that the University of Washington was the one that, you know, had to send a lawyer up there to that thing. Cause I'm like, this is all you guys. And so, you know, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but, you know, I do know that, or it does seem that, you know, the Washington State Supreme Court, it doesn't seem like would be maybe all that interested in this. I mean, it's a pretty simple even though there's, you know, large sums of money involved. It's, I think it seems to be a relatively simple and straightforward, you know, situation. And you know, you kind of get back to what Libby said about, you know, actions, you know, being louder than words or whatever, which is really just, you know, a folksy way of saying precedent, right? Like,
Yeah, this
that's
is
really
how,
all he's saying.
this is
Like
how
he
the
said,
bylaws
this is
were
the precedent.
interpreted.
Like,
And
this
it's
is
not
what
only
you
this is
did.
how the
Yeah.
this is what you did. Like, this is specifically what UW and the other
Right.
the other 8 or whatever, other 7 did,
Right.
or other 6.
The
like
ones
to
who are
USC,
arguing for
UCLA,
this,
Colorado.
this is what they did. Yeah.
This is
But
how
they're saying,
you
well,
acted, and now you're saying no, that was wrong.
yeah.
But they never
somehow
said,
now it's
well,
different because
Yeah.
there's only 2 people left, right? Like,
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. And that's, you know, that's how the judge ruled.
And I think you know, WSU's and Oregon State's argument that like it's a conflict of interest to have them voting on matters that could affect the future of the conference is like, of course it is. They're like, if you had an executive board member at any company and they already said we're going to one of your direct competitors, they're not going to let him fucking, they're going to kick him off the board immediately. They're not going to fucking let him vote
No.
on like money matters at the
No.
company and vote on key decisions for how the
They're
company
not going to let him do
operates.
anything. They're going to be like, okay, you know, you got 2 hours to clean out your stuff and we're going to take your key badge. Like,
Yeah.
like that's how it works at that level.
And yeah, yeah, it was, I don't know, like the UW was trying to argue that the language actually refers to the action of them leaving the conference before this date, before August 1st, 2024, which is like in the rules, like you get penalized for that. And so that is why it's like, well, if you think that's true, then why were you kicking USC and UCLA and Colorado off off the board immediately?
Right. Yep. Yeah. I mean,
You
it's
seem to have no problem with it.
yeah, it was all, you know, they were grasping at straws the whole way. They were, you know, trying to think up novel arguments that, and again, I think the novel arguments that were being presented were not for Libby. Like, I don't think that's the case, right? Like, you know, as you and a lot of other people noted, he seemed to sort of have his mind made up already going in. And, you know, I don't know. I'm no judge. I don't spend time around judges. I would assume that they would say, well, my mind's never actually made up until after all the arguments. But at the same time, I mean, they've reviewed all the evidence. They're going to have a pretty good sense of what direction they're heading. I mean, the Supreme Court does that. Anybody who follows the Supreme Court, like they, you know, you'll hear them questioning, the lawyers, and it's like you can get a pretty good sense most of the time of where each justice is heading and where their head's at on an issue. So in this case, I mean, it was pretty clear from the beginning, and they were, like I said, Washington, Pac-12, whatever, they were trying to essentially lay out things that they might be able to point to or grab onto on appeal. And as we saw from the statement from the 10 about their appeal, like you mentioned, they, kind of went on and on about, oh, if we lose this money, it'll have impacts on students and student mental health. And it's just like the attempted pandering there of those things, and the I don't know, for lack of a better term, the weaponization of, I know that's kind of a silly term these days, but like the weaponization of student athlete mental health. It's like, man, you don't give a shit about that. Are you kidding me? Like, you'll notice that they didn't really make or try to make an argument that somehow like they're, they would somehow be crippled financially, or it would be some sort, because it's not. They're not going to, no matter what happens here, they are not going to suffer. Well, let me rephrase. Washington and Oregon are not going to suffer much at all. The schools that are going to the Big 12 probably will be fine. Cal, Stanford, that's a bit of a different story, right? Especially Cal. I mean, Stanford's got, $800 trillion in its, in its endowment. So they'll be fine. But it's like, with Cal, it's, maybe that's kind of true, but, but for the most part, man, they're going to be fine. Like, nothing that might happen is going to be problematic. I do think that at some point, and I don't know if this is, before the appeal or what the deal is. My guess is that the departing 10, now that this has been decided, yes, they're appealing and whatever, but very rarely, most of the time things like this get settled in some way. And their fears that WSU and Oregon State could just, give them the bird and take all the money is probably founded that it could happen. I don't think that is where I don't think that's what WSU and Oregon State are aiming for. I think what they would like is to be, essentially cushioning the blow, going forward. And I think they'd like to be set up for the potential of rebuilding the conference. I think that whatever happens going forward, I do think that the Pac-whatever name is going to continue to exist, and that there will be some kind of, Pac-whatever, whatever that looks like. I do think that's it. And the one that I see sort of floated around, and I've seen a few places sort of as maybe a most plausible scenario is just, some sort of negotiated situation where it's like, okay, look, we're not going to keep all the everything for this year. We're not going to keep all the distributions, but we are going to, after this year, we are going to keep that. We are going to rebuild. We're going to take funds to rebuild that emergency fund that was depleted by the Comcast situation. So they're going to make sure that gets made whole. That it's not a situation where, cause I mean, these schools will be like, whatever, man, they'll just leave whoever holding the bag. They don't obviously care about that. So I think that's kind of where that goes. And then I also think, and this was something that came up, earlier this week or last week, I can't remember, but, Kirk Schultz sits on the CFP committee, right? And so that's kind of been a point of discussion is, okay, what happens there, right? Like, so if we continue to exist as a 2-team conference, with, big quotation marks around the word conference, do we get, cause there's that 2-year grace period, right? Like, people have talked about that. You get 2 years to kind of figure it out if you drop below whatever the minimum is, 6 teams or whatever it is. And so the thought was, well, are WSU and Oregon State going to try to, essentially, keep a CFP spot that's going to go to one of those two every year? And, I think that that's just sort of another point of leverage there. The story that came out was, Kirk Schultz was open to, essentially changing his vote because everything's got to be unanimous. So he was open to changing his votes if certain, concessions were made, right? So what it really looks like to me is, WSU, Oregon State, essentially they're trying to gain as much leverage as they can gain to try and, soften the blow and then create a situation where perhaps they can, rebuild this into something that matters and keep, the assets where they are, the Pac-12 networks, all that kind of stuff. These are all things that can be used to rebuild a conference that would, that essentially, I know everybody wants to be like, well, it'll just be like, the Mountain West Plus or whatever. And while to some degree that's true, the Pac-whatever assets are quite different than what you find at Group of Five conferences, so it really, yes. Is it a step? Is it going to end up being, I'm sure, a step below, what's left of now, the Power Four or whatever? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty clear, but I think if they can establish themselves as a bit of a step above, the Sun Belt, the MAC, the AAC, whatever, I think that is good and beneficial. And then I think also being able to, sell themselves as truly the only West Coast conference. I think that matters too. So I think that's where it's heading. I would assume there's going to be some sort of, agreement between the 2 and the 10, as to kind of how all this is going to go down so as to avoid, further litigation. And I would guess it's going to involve WSU and Oregon State getting, negotiating a deal where, they end up getting more money than they otherwise would, to try and cushion the blow, to their athletic department finances and also put the conference in a position to become a second iteration of it, as it were.
Right. And yeah, apparently they had mediation with another retired judge for the last 2 months, and that didn't do anything. But now WSU and Oregon State have
there's
some
more
leverage. There's more leverage on the Oregon.
They got
State
some leverage now
WSU
because
side.
it's been decided. Okay, you two are in control, and the appeal is, it sure seems like unlikely to succeed. So that's a point where Oregon State and WSU can come to the table and say, all right, now we can really talk, right? And, see where it goes from there. It still sucks. It's not good.
in a beautiful,
like,
in a
yay
beautiful
for
fantasy
victory,
world,
but
we could give them the double birds.
We could,
and take everything.
I would love it if
and
we
say
would.
fuck off, because they deserve it. Like their sanctimonious bullshit they've been spouting throughout this process, like basically pointing at the mirror. It's always these accusations, always like they're like more of an admission or whatever.
Yes.
Like, and it's just, I'm tired of it already. Tired of like UW and Duck fans, like coming into mentions and stuff. And just like, it's like, you guys have bought into this idea that you going to the Big Ten was a good thing. Like, you did it out of panic.
I think they know it's a bad thing. Like, I think they know that.
They try to pretend like it's a good thing, and then they're like, and they're like, suck it, you guys didn't get invited. It's like, well, yeah, we didn't, but have fun playing in New Jersey, I guess. I don't know, fucking College Park. Like,
and we always use those examples as the extreme, but it's like, I mean, even like, have fun going to Ohio. Like Ohio's not close.
Ann Arbor.
Like Ohio, Ann Arbor, those are places that are like 2/3 the way across the country. Like, this is not like,
more like
we always talk, I mean, we talk like Midwest, and it's like, man, it ain't actually the middle of the country. Like, you're over there on the other half of the country.
Yeah, basically,
even though
when you get to Chicago,
Midwest,
when you get to Chicago, you're 2/3 of the way across the country at that point, because it's only like a 2-hour flight from Chicago to New York.
Yep.
And so it's just like,
it's everywhere they go is going to be like, other than Oregon and USC and UCLA, everywhere they go is going to be like a hellishly long flight with, like missed days. Anyway, whatever. We know, right? And their fans know. Their fans
it's especially
know
going to suck
that it's a stupid deal.
It's especially going to suck for the sports that are not football and men's basketball that don't get a charter flights,
Right.
and they're going to fly on commercial.
Yep.
You know, taking all your gear, dealing with delays.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flying into
It's-
just like if you got fucking flying through Chicago in any way, like good
Yep.
luck. It's just
Good
a
luck.
nightmare.
Yeah. It's whatever. They know.
yeah.
Deep down, they know. They know. Their fans know. They all know.
I hope the
And,
athletes
you know.
they get, at least they'll come out of college with like a fuck ton of mileage and they can go travel the world.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be
I-
one of their recruiting pitches.
Yeah. One of the things that's going to be interesting to see going forward is, does recruiting suffer for Washington, Oregon, UCLA, USC? I tend to think it won't really suffer for USC because USC is USC. But Washington, I mean, yes, you can pitch, hey, we're playing in this great conference. You'll get to, play this, play that, play whatever. But, if you're doing that though, like what if you are, say, Michigan, right? And, Washington's recruiting a certain player, right? Well, if you're Michigan, you can come over and be like, hey, just come to Michigan. And then,
Like you're gonna have to fly out here anyway all the time.
and then you can not spend, half your life on an airplane, right? Like, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that works out. I do tend to think that the long-term plan of rebuilding the Pac-12 is creating another, like essentially making the conference such that it can reabsorb the schools that are going to get left out in the next round, which could include Cal and Stanford and Arizona.
Which is probably
we're
not
just
going to
going
be
to
that
keep
far down the road.
We're
Like
just,
it's not going to be that far down the road.
I've heard people use the term canary in the coal mine as it refers to us. And I'm like, that's actually, I think, pretty spot on. Like, and we've talked about that, where it's like we saw this very scenario coming when we talked about this like a year or two ago, but neither one of us saw it happening like now. Like we were like, in 5 to 10 years, this is what's going to, it happened to us like really fast. But I think it's going to happen to a lot of the consolidation's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. It's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. They're going to keep, gathering up the best brands, the biggest whatever. And then all of these other schools that are laughing right now they're going to be where we are anyway. They're going to get left out. They're going to get left behind.
Talk your shit, Arizona State fans. Like,
exactly.
Talk your shit. Like it's not like it's coming for you at some point as well.
It's going to come.
Like
for
it's and I just I'm sure like Oregon will be fine and UW will probably they'll
Washington
stay.
will probably be in that whatever super league, but
UCLA and USC will. But Cal, Stanford,
maybe not. It might not be UCLA.
Maybe not UCLA. Yeah,
it's not going to be Cal. It's not going to be Stanford. It's not going to be Arizona State. It's not going to be Utah. It's not going to be Colorado, right? It's not going to be any of these other schools. They'll all be somewhere like, a second tier Pac-12, whether it's the Pac-12 or what. Like I don't know. Maybe it's the Big 12 when basically every other decent brand they've got takes off. I mean, they've already lost Texas and Oklahoma, so I don't know. It all sucks and it's all just going to
They took the $30 million deal though.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Imagine if the Pac-12 had just hung on to negotiations for another 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the football conference now. What would people pay for the conference at this point? Yeah. Anyway.
Oh man. Well, speaking of football, I guess we could talk about the WSU football team.
Do we have to?
Well, I swear, like, what? Like,
I mean, for real, do we have to?
the game against Cal is like a prime example of like the shit we're losing, like in all of this.
Yep.
Like Cal and WSU always play batshit fucking crazy games.
Yes.
Very college football games.
Yep.
And Saturday was no different. Fucking 2 fumble returns for a touchdown, shitty ref shit on going every which way. Just like a near comeback at the end, teams blowing leads like really quickly.
Yep.
Like, it was a wild game. Like a team who had given up 2 fumble return touchdowns, still having a chance to win at the end, like 42-39. Like, it was wild. It was frustrating. I don't like. The first fumble that just didn't seem possible. Like, I don't see how forward momentum is not stopped there. That was weird. The second fumble for a touchdown, I feel like we barely saw any replays. It was so weird. Like, the ball flew forward 15 yards, and we like, how'd that happen? And like, it's a touchdown. Let's not even look at it.
Yeah, we'll just keep it moving. Just keep it moving.
Like, what is going on? And they didn't really look at the other way. You could see like Cam is like laying on top of the pile, and then the ball suddenly pops out.
Yes.
Like, what's going on here?
Yes. And then to speak
all the
nothing of
reviews-
a fumble, that also set up like an 18-yard scoring drive, right?
That was that was all Cam. Just
That one was
being
all Cam.
bad Cam.
Yep.
We saw the best of Cam and the worst of Cam in this game, man.
Yes.
Like, it just,
Yes, we did.
which is weird because usually you get one or the other, but we saw them both
Yes,
against
we did.
Cal.
Which we, we
the-
always see fun stuff.
The positive angle is that they actually put up some offense.
Yeah.
Like, that makes you feel a little bit better about this week against Colorado. Like, okay, it's still there. That fucking debacle against Stanford, like, there's still 39 points, even turning the ball over twice, that's still there. And, you got a couple guys get their first touchdown. DJ and Mathers. So that was cool, but yeah, what the fuck? I mean, it basically like it kind of felt like it sucked it. Like, I felt like I was so numb to Cougar football before that game started, and then by the end, I was so fucking bummed. I was so bummed because it's like the end of an era. Because like, we could win the next 2 and go to a bowl game, but come on.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember as we were watching the game, like I've had a really tough time being like super emotionally invested in stuff lately with the team. I have not watched 2 games this year, and that is like completely unusual for me, right? Like, normally it's like, hey, it's appointment viewing and I don't care. I got to move, heaven and earth, but I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch the fucking Cougs, And this year it's just been like, let's go to Paulsbo for the day. Oh, the Cougs play at that time. It'll be fine. I'll watch it later, or maybe I won't watch it at all. I don't know. And it's like, even sitting through this Cal game, I was just like I couldn't even get like super worked up or mad. I ended up laughing at a lot of it through a lot of the game. And then of course they had to try and, make it close at the end, which I think is sort of what led to the feeling when it was all over of just feeling like, man, I'm kind of bummed right now, and I was like, I'm feeling way more bummed about this than I thought. And I think it's just kind of everything, right? Like, I think that's what you just alluded to. It's all of it. And it's the last time we're going to play Cal who knows when. I'm sure we'll play him. Like, I'm sure we'll have non-conference games against a bunch of these teams and, whatever. But, and I do believe that eventually we'll end up in a conference with Cal again when it's all said and done anyway. But, that and the, the way the game went and just feeling like, I don't know, man, it's just all such a bummer. And I was bummed out by the way it ended. We didn't play great by any means. I mean, Cam threw for 358, but it took him 60 passes to get there. That's under 6 yards an attempt. That's bad. that's Luke Falk-esque right there. And then, he had a couple of really bad turnovers that, frankly, sort of killed the team. And, maybe that's not the reason they lost, but it certainly is a major reason they lost. And, so he is sort of a mess all over the place. I mean, I was thinking at some point, he probably should have been benched in that game. Now, he played really well, after that, but still, it just was sort of confounding in so many different ways. And it was so much of the stuff that we've seen all year. Defense, in general, being unable to come up with, big stops, when it mattered. Second half was much better, obviously, than the first half, but you end up giving up 167 yards to Jaden Ott. I know 52 of it comes on one run, but that's still a lot of yards to give up. I mean, you lose to a team that, whose quarterback only had to throw the ball, 21 times. I mean, it's just, the turnover, just all of it. And it was super frustrating. I mean, I guess if we want to talk positive, I don't know. You got anything else you want to complain about, or we want to talk about positives?
Yeah, I'll say what positive is that? I mean, the difference of the running backs, Leo and DJ.
And that was the thing that came to my mind right away too.
Yeah, just maybe the running game wasn't all the offensive line this year, and it kind of really highlighted that Nakia has been playing injured the whole year, because just you see these guys with burst into the hole and missing tackles and stuff. It's like, this is a big difference, and you got to think, like, you got to wonder, like, why we're putting this, like, in clearly less than 100% guy out there for so long, and he was just getting hit and not really being very effective. When, like, you can, because it's not like I don't know, the run game, there's a lot of parts of it that aren't super complicated. But just to I don't know, maybe it just took the young guys some time to get up to speed. I don't know, but like that was probably the best they've run the ball, and hopefully that continues, in the next game and against UW too, because they just like we just haven't seen them been able to run the ball that well in the entire year, and it was so weird that they were like that. That's why they were able to get only 6 yards a pass and still move the ball, is because they were getting yards on the ground.
Yeah. I think one of my frustrations with Arbuckle this year has been the lack of personnel rotation, where, they seem to have their guys, or he seems to have his guys. I don't know how the decisions are made, but it just seems like not a lot of opportunities for other people to do things. And it's especially sort of, jarring in contrast to the way Leach used to operate, where, he was constantly rotating guys in, running backs, receivers. I mean, he wasn't rotating linemen, but like he was rotating running backs. The skill guys were like constantly in and out. You were going 2-3 deep at every position. You could count on, 8 to 10 receivers playing in a game. Really, you could just sort of like count on that happening. And, it was always like the joke, like, it was just plug and play. And, you'd have, this quarterback's completed, 28 passes to 9 different receivers. And it's like, that's kind of how it goes. Just the unwillingness to kind of let other guys do a thing, or to trust them to do a thing, I think, has been detrimental at times. Like, I mean, we saw on I think the first series, Cyan Nunnally finally got a chance, got a target, didn't catch it. It was a hard thrown ball. It was a little high, and those are kind of hard sometimes for receivers, because, you gotta get your arms all the way up, and, you got shoulder pads and all that stuff. But anyway, he didn't bring it in. It wasn't like a blatant drop, but also probably should have caught it. And that's always kind of been the knock on him anyway. Well, guess what? I don't remember seeing him in the game the rest of the way. And he certainly didn't have a catch, right? And when you look down, the passing stats, you just see the same names over and over. You see, Lincoln Victor and his, whatever 20 targets that he's getting a game at this point. And you see lots of Josh Kelly, right? He had lots of catches in this one. Carlos Hernandez, finally got in there for a couple. Kyle Williams had a few. And then you had a few to the running backs and a few to Mathers, and that was kind of it. And you just didn't see the other guys playing. So I'm glad, just kind of bring it back around. I'm glad that the running backs got a chance because, both Schlenbaker and Pulalasi both looked really good. And it's like you said, I think it's what you said, like their ability to hit the hole hard and fast. It's just the thing that Watson can't do right now. We were talking about this during the game about runs of 20 plus yards and how many we were like, man, how many of those have we had this year? I looked it up. We have 4, right? We have 4 all year long, 4 20 plus runs. And 2 of those were by Cam Ward. And then the other 2, I'm trying to remember who the other 2 were, but anyway, it's not Nakia Watson. He doesn't have any. And it's, and he's got about half the number of carries as he had last year. I think last year. I think
Schlenbaker had a really big one against Northern Colorado.
Yeah, I think that was right. Yeah. So, Watson had, I think 10 runs of 20 plus yards last year. He's got 0 this year in about half the number
Dylan
of carries.
had a big one.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, they haven't said that he's hurt. I think it would be pretty easy to infer that he's hurt, and it was good to see them roll with somebody else. So hopefully we'll see more of that. Hopefully we'll see some of those guys get a shot, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll give some other receivers a chance. I know Leighton Smithson got in the game as a returner. I know he's been, I think spent a lot of the year hurt. So, maybe he gets a shot to run some. He's a fast guy, man. Maybe run some of those routes where he can get behind the defense a little bit against Colorado and Washington.
Yeah. Speaking of Colorado, very similar situation to us. They've lost 6 of 7, and we've lost 7 in a row. To both or 6 in a row to arrive at our identical 4-6 records. Obviously, they were a big story early on. The offense looked much improved, and it is versus the depths that they were down last year. Obviously, Deion Sanders is the big sell here. Although I don't think he's going to be much of a draw in Pullman with 4-6 team on a Friday. And then obviously his son Shadur, how do you say his name?
I think it's Shadur.
Shadur. He's obviously been the quarterback. Now, interesting thing, big thing I think in this game will be Stone and Jackson, because Sanders doesn't throw many picks, but the flip side of that is he has been sacked 49 times.
Oh yeah,
which
it's insane.
That's Falkian levels of getting sacked.
With by the way, imagine Luke Falk, but with 5 times the athleticism, still getting sacked that many times.
I mean, it's Russell Wilson basically.
There you go.
Yeah. But 49 times. For comparison, Cam, who seems under duress all the time, every game, has been sacked 31 times in 10 games.
Not even close.
And tack on 18 for Sanders. So, yeah.
And by the way, if you've watched Colorado, you know that it's not just the sacks. He's getting hit a lot too. Yeah. It's not just sacks.
Yeah, you could go get a lot of, in the transfer portal, get a lot of 5-star type guys, but it's hard to build that offensive line really quickly.
Yep.
It's hard to do that. They've definitely improved. They have some really good skill players. But yeah, that offensive line is tough, and WSU knows that as well as anyone.
Yep.
That's obviously we don't know what WSU's offense is going to do, but Colorado's defense is not good. So you would hope that WSU could put up 39 points, again, 40 points, like they did last game, but Stanford's defense is fucking terrible. and we can, like
Yep.
so. I don't. You just don't know. Maybe this team hates playing in Pullman. That's why it's so hard to predict. But you got to watch out for a guy like Travis Hunter, obviously, on both sides. And they Sanders spreads the ball around. They have a good passing game as long as they don't get sacked. Their running numbers look terrible because of those 49 sacks, because that's how college football takes sack numbers. But they really they're here. Sorry, I was looking at our stats real quick. I was like, wow, they have shitty running backs too. They have shitty running stats too. It's like, oh, that's us. But if you look at their running backs, not really they have a couple guys who have had carry, who get about 6 or 7 carries a game and get about 4 yards a carry. They don't have a super. They don't use them a lot. They've Sanders leads the team in rushing touchdowns. So this is he's 106 attempts. Obviously, 49 of those are sacks. But he's pretty good when he running the ball. That's so funny. He has negative 51 yards rushing. If you watch him play, he's a very good runner. I think that's how broadcasters think Cam can't do anything with his legs.
Yeah,
because he gets sacked so much.
Yes,
that it negates all of his rushing yards.
Yep.
That just shows you if you want to find out if a broadcaster doesn't really know what he's talking about. Look at that. Hi. Damn, what's his name? Tim Robinson. What's his name? Fuck.
Ted Robinson.
Ted Robinson. Yeah. He literally said that he has watched Cam play multiple times and said in a game early this season that he's not a threat with his legs. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Which is insane.
That's so
you would think okay, you would think that if you were broadcasting, if you were calling a WSU game, you would have at least watched the Wisconsin game, right?
Yeah.
That was their, I guess the Oregon State game ends up, a bigger win than that. But still, if you're looking at that, if you're looking at Wisconsin, he basically won the game at the end with his legs.
Yeah.
Have you watched it? Anyway, yeah.
So, Colorado is probably, I at this point, I think they're pretty evenly matched. Earlier this season, WSU was a lot better. But Colorado's 3 wins, they beat Colorado State in overtime at home, while WSU beat Colorado State by 4 touchdowns on the road. But at this point where WSU is, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
This is a game that WSU probably should win, and they are favored. But
I don't know. You won't hear me say that at this point.
Yeah, but but you just don't know what you're getting out of this team. Are we getting the fucking offense against Stanford? Are we getting are we getting the offense we've seen in every other game that actually scores points? Or are we getting the one that we saw against Arizona Stanford? Right. And by the way, both those games were in Pullman.
Right.
So I don't know. Because if you don't score, Colorado definitely has the ability to put up points and bury you. They also have the ability to give up massive leads, which they did against Stanford.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is probably, if I just went with if I just thought our team was normal in any way, you'd be like, okay, this could be a game in the 30s probably, and it's probably gonna be close, and decided by a touchdown or less either way. I honestly don't know. We're not predicting the scores of this team anymore. They're fucking Jekyll and Hyde. They don't look the same from week to week. It's just other than that they lose. So that's the only thing that you can feel relatively confident about. Is that they will lose.
Yeah. I think that for sort of peak narrative purposes, I do think that they win this game. Because of course then you go into
It'd be 5-6.
Apple Cup at 5-6, needing a win to go to a bowl game. I also think that this game's a shootout. I think it's an absolute shootout. I think you get, crazy Pac-12 after dark vibes. It's going to be cold, but it'll be dry. You got, a Colorado defense that isn't good. And you've got, explosive offenses, I think, on both sides. I just think this is sort of set up for sort of a lot of points back and forth. At this point, WSU's favored by 4.5. That's come down quite a bit from where it started. I want to say it started like 6 or 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah. Which was like, I know, like my eyes went like what?
How do you, how?
I know.
Like, what's going on here?
We used to joke about how Vegas had not caught up with how good we were, right? Like over the years with Leach, it was like one of the best bets you could make was, the Cougs, whatever, Cougs minus or Cougs plus, like that was the play. That was the way to go because Vegas never caught up. Now it's like, it's the other way around. Like Vegas still hasn't caught up, but it's like the other way. Like, no, we suck. What are you talking about? So I don't know. It's, 4.5 still seems like a lot to me. I'm thinking this ends up like a shootout. I'm thinking both teams in the 40s. Wouldn't be shocked either way if either team won.
They've only been blown out once.
Yeah, and that was
they've had a chance to win almost every game.
Yep.
And so it's like, yeah, like that's why like the number is wild to me.
Yep.
Whereas
and the over under is like 63, which is to me is honestly not high enough.
Yeah, so I would like if I was a betting man, I would that would be the play for me.
I mean, if you're talking, okay, the spread's 4.5, over under 63. You're talking, okay, that means like WSU, what, like 34-30, 33-29, 34-29, whatever.
Yeah,
like I don't know, man. That seems low to me. So I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I think it's going to give us ulcers, but I think it'll be fun.
We'll be watching it together.
Yes, we will. It'll be fun in the comfort of a warm home or a warm beer place.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how long the kid can last at Beer Star.
Yeah,
and we're going to start the thing at 5. I don't know if she'll last all the way to 7:30, and then also like so. Might be watching. I think more likely we'll watch the bulk of the game in my house.
Yeah,
but
so I don't know.
Do you think it's my daughter's birthday on Friday? That's why. That's why I'm not going to Pullman, and then because it is the last Power 5 home game.
Yeah.
But hey, I gave my my ticket to Brian Floyd. So
woo, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that'll be cool. And Roger Sherman's going to be there. Road Raj.
Yeah.
On his college football tour.
If you have no idea what we're talking about, you should find Raj on Twitter or something.
Yeah, Road Raj. He took a sabbatical from work, and he's been going to college football games. A lot of them.
Seems like a pretty good deal to me.
He's a guy that we've come across a lot. I think he used to run the Northwestern blog.
Yep.
Big basketball writer. SB Nation guy. So yeah, they're coming. I assume he's going to the Idaho game on Saturday too.
Yeah.
Brian said he's going to that.
Yes.
So,
yep.
So nice double whammy of college football games. You get 2 in 2 days. So which hey, if you're going to Pullman, not a bad idea. Go check out Idaho State. Got that top 10 team in Moscow.
Or go find Floyd. Say hi.
Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Brian will be polite. He's not always the most social guy, but he'll be polite.
I set him up with the tailgate, and so hopefully he'll check that out and
Yeah,
it'll be good.
I hope so.
And he knows Lars, and Lars's ticket is right next to mine.
There you
so-
go. Yeah, that's it. Well, fraternity brothers from back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they were ever in it together.
Maybe not.
Or maybe they were. Maybe they crossed
I
over
think
in
they.
a couple
I
of years.
think they were. I think they were, but I could be wrong. Anyway, whatever. Nobody's
Maybe-
listening
yeah,
to this
maybe there
cares
was
about
two.
that.
What?
I said nobody who's listening to this cares about that. So that's
I know. It's so funny. Sorry, guys.
sorry, everybody.
You're right. I think
Yeah,
they crossed over
We're
a
not.
couple years.
We're not just talking to
Um,
each other. We're talking to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, guys.
Oh,
I kind of forgot for a second. I'm fucking
Yeah.
sick, dude.
That's
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to hold back coughs. I'm sorry. I got one into the mic earlier because I
Yeah.
thought I had hit them. I
It's-
actually
people-
double tapped.
yeah.
the
The
mic,
listeners like
the mute
they
button.
they wouldn't know this, but every time somebody on this recording mutes and unmutes their button, it shows up on the little chat log here, and I swear to God, there's like 28 straight of Craig has muted their audio. Craig has unmuted their audio. Craig has muted their audio. Craig has unmuted their audio.
If I'm not-
It's like,
If I'm not
like
talking,
about every
I'm
2-3
coughing.
minutes.
That's
yeah, yeah. That's pretty. That's good. That's good.
oh man. Okay.
Beer. Should we talk beer?
Basketball.
Beer.
Oh, beer. Yeah, sure. What are you drinking, Jeff?
All right. We'll make it quick. I've still got fresh hops left. So this is the Fresh Hop Lateral A by Single Hill, in collaboration with Zeke's Pizza, which is actually one of our favorite pizza spots too. They do a really good gluten-free pizza that our family can eat. So here you go. This is the limited release Fresh Hop Series 23. It is juicy, dreamy, fresh, an amped up version of Lateral A with wet Loftus. Now here's where we get into the weeds here, buddy. Wet Loftus 586, Haas 1019, and fresh AF pellets of Peralt 586, Talus, and Haas 1019. So I'm sure you know what all those different hop varieties are.
Those are just hops that are so new they have not been named yet.
Experimental. Yeah. So anyway, it's good. Very bitter. More bitter than I expected for something that's extremely hazy, but yeah, very tasty.
Yeah, I had that one. I like the bitterness. Quite tired
Yeah,
of the
it's good.
Quite tired of the little soft baby
Yep.
IPAs.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of the other flavors have maybe faded a little bit at this point. So this thing was canned probably, 6 weeks ago. So
How dare you?
I know.
How dare you?
What kind of beer drinker am I?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what
What
kind
about
of
you,
beer
buddy?
drinker I am tonight. I am not a beer drinker.
That's why you were ready to roll past the beer.
Yeah. I started the podcast with some nice honey vanilla chamomile tea from, I believe it's Celestial Seasonings
Yeah.
or something, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
The Sleepy
good
Time tea
work.
people.
Uh-huh.
And then I've been followed that up with some lovely Tacoma tap water.
Attaboy.
Just yeah. So I gotta rest up for the weekend.
Yeah. Let me
a
help
lot
you
of
out
fun
here.
Things going on.
That's the Rogers Pilsner getting opened up.
There you
So,
go. There you go.
I got you.
No beer for me tonight. Gotta work on myself. But yeah, let's
I know that.
and let's talk about basketball.
I know. We're gonna have to fly through this.
Yes,
At this
which
point.
we're so good at doing. when we
Yes.
talk about
Oh, I
basketball.
know. Yeah, for sure.
So the men played one game since we last recorded. Prairie View A&M got that HBCU
Yeah.
Legacy Series revenge.
Revenge game.
I think it was a lot of what we said about the first game was pretty similar. Jones played a lot more. Didn't use, well, I guess he did because so 2 games of evidence we have that Jones draws a lot of fucking fouls, attacks the
Yes.
rebounds, and yeah, so we know that. Rice is looking like he's going to be a big factor in the offense. Andre again was a big factor. He was very efficient, and he got lots of boards. Chinyelu, I had mentioned, he only played 10 minutes in this game. I'm guessing because he was just like too big. We've seen this against smaller teams, like the young bigs just don't play because
Yes.
smaller, quicker teams like Prairie View.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's again just like looking like a guy that's not going to find his own. Like it's gonna be offensive rebounds, or it's gonna be so, although his counterpart, not his counterpart, but his teammate, Oscar Clough, he had one hell of a game.
Yeah.
5 of 5 from the field, 7-8 from the line, 17 points in 23 minutes. Just was eating Prairie View A&M alive.
Yeah. 5 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks.
Yeah, the passing was great.
Yep.
He looks like a very skilled guy. But yeah, overall, great to see them not drop that game.
Yeah.
Yes, honestly, I would have taken a 1-point win, and I didn't even care. Sometimes you worry about the KenPom and net ratings and stuff. It's just like, just don't lose to them again.
Correct. Yeah, at this point, that's all we're really. I mean, our ranking hasn't really budged. It moved up a tiny bit after Idaho. It dropped a tiny bit after Prairie View. Whatever. It's the games are. Look, at this point, just don't lose. Like you said, just don't lose. That's fine. And then, because I don't know what this team's ceiling is. I suspect it's not as high as it's been the last couple of years, but still, if you want to give yourself a chance to, maybe get back to the NIT or whatever, you don't want to be losing to Idaho or Prairie View. Right. So,
right.
You win those games, and then you kind of see what you can do after that. Right. We got Mississippi State this weekend. And then after that, I'm not sure who's on deck after that, but, cause it's a tournament, but still, they're going to get tested a little bit. Mississippi State, looks very, very good. So, that'll be a really nice test. Game's nice and early on Saturday. It's back in, isn't it in Connecticut, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Where this is at. So, it'll be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So nice and early, which will be, that'll work out great for me. I'll watch. Actually, no, Dortmund doesn't play this weekend. International break. Okay.
Yeah,
so I can sleep in a little bit. Yeah, sleep in a little bit and then watch this game against Mississippi State. And
Jeff, you sleep in and watch the second half of the Dortmund games. That's what I do.
Not this guy. This guy's like, and I'd love to say it's because I'm like some kind of super fan, but mostly it's just I'm old and I have a hard time sleeping in. So I'm usually up at, 6 or so, even on Saturday, and make a coffee and watch some soccer. But not this weekend. I'll make a coffee and watch the Cougs play against Mississippi State. So
Mississippi State, it's going to be, they have a real good defense. It's probably going to be a pretty ugly offensive game for us. They block a fair amount of shots. They generate turnovers. Generate turnovers through steals, not necessarily other types, but they get a lot of live ball turnovers. They're tough to score on inside. It'll be interesting. Yeah, they already beat Arizona State pretty good, and the Arizona State's kind of right now. KenPom has them at about our level, and they beat them by 15 on a neutral floor.
Yep.
So it'll be a tough game, and if WSU is able to win, this will be a big win.
Yeah,
Mississippi State is a tournament team. They're probably. This is absolutely like it's going to be a quad 1 game because they'll be very likely will be a top 50 net team.
Yeah.
So this is our biggest non-conference game. In terms of opportunity, it's also tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah. But it's a good measuring stick early in the season, right? Like you don't want to play cupcakes all the way through and then all of a sudden hit, the Pac-12. And I think this is a pretty good bit of scheduling. You play a couple of, easier teams at home. And then you go on the road, and it's not a road game, but it's like, you're away from home. and see what you got, and if it doesn't go great, then okay, now you know something that you didn't know before. So I think it's great. Even if the outcome is really bad, I don't know if there's an outcome that would make me that would sort of change the way I feel one way or the, I mean, if they win, that'd be one thing, but I don't think there's a loss that is gonna, sort of sway me one way or another on anything. Cause I expect them to lose, if they lose by 10 or they lose by 30, I'm not sure that makes much of a difference for me.
These kids are playing at 9 a.m. It's rough.
Yes. And they'll probably, I mean, I assume that, they will have gotten out there a little bit early and they'll acclimate and all that stuff. I mean, they haven't played since Friday, right? They've taken some time off here taking a week off to get ready to travel. So and hopefully, what's that?
What is this tournament? Because they're going to play two.
I don't know.
Or is this?
I don't know the name of it. I know they are going to play two, and I know it's determined based off of wins and losses. I don't know much beyond that. I don't know. I can try to look it up.
Hall
really
of Fame
quick.
tip off.
There you go. That sounds right. So I'm not sure who else involved. I know that the second game, I remember when we looked at it when it was sort of first announced, I remember thinking oh yeah, that, that'll be a nice test. I mean, even the second game, I think will be
it's
something reasonable.
It's Rhode Island or Northwestern.
There you go. Yeah. Northwestern is, at this point is pretty much a fringy, bubble-ish, NIT-ish type team. So that's, that'll be a good test if we end up
And Rhode
playing
Island
them.
is not very good. But it's closer to home for them.
Yeah. Close.
So yeah. So either way, I mean, if you win, if you beat Mississippi State, you're probably getting Northwestern. So this will turn out to be
you would think so.
two good tests. If you lose to Mississippi State, you're getting Rhode Island, and you probably should beat them. They'll play two games in. Do they have a day off? No, it's 2 games in 2 days. So
nope. Yeah, Sunday.
So if they lose, they'll play at 10 a.m. on Sunday. If they win on Saturday, they'll play at 12:30.
Yep. No, it's the other way around. Championship first, then consolation.
Oh, weird.
I assume that's for television purposes, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So men's basketball.
Woo.
Something really cool could happen, and if not, we'll just keep on going.
Yeah.
Now the women, they are stacking up games earlier in the year.
Oh my God.
They've
already played 4 games.
They've already played 4 plus an exhibition.
Yeah.
So that I counted, they're playing 8 games in the first 19 days of the season.
That's a lot.
So since we've last talked, they played Gonzaga, Idaho State, and Montana, right?
Yep.
And that Gonzaga game, huge game, Gonzaga potential tournament team.
Yep.
And it was rough at times. They blew. Well, Gonzaga had a lead at first. WSU comes back, takes a pretty big lead, a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, blows that. Gonzaga gets a fucking miracle 3-pointer to tie the game at the buzzer. After WSU's making its free throws and stuff, it's frustrating. But they to their credit, this is a veteran team. That shock happened. They didn't seem too affected by it. And they came out and they won the overtime, and that's a big win, both from an NCAA tournament potential, but also a big win just because fuck Gonzaga. Hell yeah.
The Zags, as always.
That away.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it feels like they haven't really hit their stride yet either. They played Montana, and that game was, also maybe a little bit closer. Not that, I mean, the final score, I think the margin ended up being 12. And I don't know that the game was necessarily that close. I know that it was kind of nip and tuck in the first half. Second half, they kind of blew the game open, and then, just kind of hung out around 15 to, 19, 20 point lead. And then they kind of, Montana pulled some points back at the end to make it that 12-point game. But, they haven't
Same
really
thing
hit
with
their
Idaho
stride
State.
yet.
They pulled back.
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
points at the end.
They haven't really hit their stride yet. And that's mostly due to the fact that, Charlisse is not playing at peak level at the moment.
Yeah.
And
Charlisse definitely,
I know,
she had a huge second half against Gonzaga. Helped put them over the edge there. She had 26 points in that game, but she wasn't too terribly efficient. And but yeah, she's just been struggling pretty mightily with her shot. Did come around in the second half against Montana more. But we've seen a lot of like halves where she goes like 2 of 8, 1 of 7, whatever, But she ended up like 7 of 23 against Montana.
Yeah,
Man.
there was a stretch there against Montana where it was like, okay, here she goes. She's taking over now. And then it kind of got bad again after that. Like it was, I mean, she did end up with 19 points, but it was bad. And she played, and the thing is she's playing huge minutes too. I don't know
all
if
40.
Yeah, she played 39 against Montana. I don't know if Cammie is like just trying to let her play to get her untracked, just kind of let her. But even against Montana, it seemed like pretty clear she was, maybe getting a little frustrated. Not with Montana, but just kind of with like her shot, like in what she was doing. Cause she was forcing some stuff a little bit, down the stretch there. So, I mean, I guess that bears watching, but I have a hard time. I know like you were like, should we be concerned now? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm thinking like, I don't know. It's going to have to get a lot worse before I get real worried. Players go through slumps. Hopefully that's all this is. There's no indication she's hurt. She's playing tons of minutes. It's, just, I guess jumpers, kind of come and go sometimes. And maybe she's just kind of in one of those. I guess I would rather have her struggling with her shot right now than a month from now. So,
yeah. One thing that's curious to me is that Beyonce B doesn't get more shots because she's coming from like leading, like what, she was 23 points a game last year. I think she led the nation scoring, or not. No, she didn't. Obviously, led the Big Sky. Obviously, Caitlin Clark. But but yeah, she obviously is giving the team a lot. Like she's a very good rebounder, solid defensively. She's very versatile. She brings the ball up sometimes. And then like goes and plays in the post. But yeah, she's, she got 5 shots in this game against a team that she has played against before and scored a lot of points against before.
Yep.
Because you can't be like, oh, well, she's Big Sky player, bump it up. Like, no, this is a Big Sky team.
No, this is a Big Sky team.
Shots.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of distribution of shots in this game. Bella got a lot because she was roasting.
Yeah, Bella was
Montana
killing
State
people.
Inside.
Yep.
And then Ella Villa is a shooter. We know that. She's a scorer. She's going to take a lot of shots. And then, but outside, those are only 3 that had more than 5 shots were Bella, Charlisse, and Ella.
Yep.
It was cool to see Colville. She looks like she's a legit like shot blocking presence inside.
Yep.
I mean, she's 6'6", that helps, but like she's setting shots away. She's a nice big to come off the bench. So yeah, the roster's looking solid still after 4 games in now. Very deep, but they still have Jess coming back at some point. And Sia Eckhoff, she played a bit against Cal Poly, but didn't play against Montana. So I'm not sure where her injury's at. but she could provide depth at guard as well. Because it seems like someone's gonna have to take some of these minutes from Charlisse at some point. Like she
Yep.
can't be riding these minutes all season long.
No,
Especially in this
I mean,
stretch, 8 games in 19 days. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe Cammie thinks she can. I don't know. I'd be really curious. If I had the opportunity to, show up to one of the press conferences, I'd love to ask, what the thought process is with the heavy minutes right now, because I don't know, man. I'm curious
I
because
feel like we didn't need them against Idaho State, Montana. I guess
Yeah.
maybe you're worried about the net. I don't know. Like,
maybe, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'd be curious. I'd love to hear the rationale for what they're doing, because at this point she's starting to look like she's pressing a bit, particularly down the stretch, the fourth quarter or so against Montana. She looked like she was starting to force some stuff, and now she's good enough that even when she forces stuff she could be effective, but right now it's not good.
So they now have they get to be they're traveling to Prairie View A&M on Sunday. I do wonder if they're going straight to Cabo or to Cancun, or they're going all the way back to Pullman and then flying, because Texas is pretty close to Cancun.
Yes.
I wonder if they're going to fly all the way back to Pullman and then go to Cancun on the 23rd, or if because it's break they'll just go straight to Cancun. I hope for their sake they get to go Cancun.
Yeah.
Because they go play in Cancun 3 games over the Thanksgiving. After that, but so that's what they have coming up. Can't hate on 4-0 with a big win over Gonzaga. Look, doing well so far, and they're definitely not at their best. So Charlisse is gonna come around.
Yes. I believe it.
Volleyball again had a frustrating loss to UCLA in 5 sets. On Friday, they had in the 5th set they had a 6-0 lead, and as many of you know, in the 5th set, instead of going to 25, you only go to 15, and they ended up losing that 5th set. They blew that 6-0 lead, so that was real frustrating. And then they came out against USC and got absolutely rocked in the first 2 sets. Not even close. I think it was 25-15, 25-16, something like that, in the 2 sets. Just looked like they had no shot. But then they came back and they won the next set pretty easily. And then the 4th set was a tight one. And then they prevailed in the 5th set. So they did what they call in volleyball a reverse sweep. And that was desperately needed. Excuse me.
Yep.
Desperately needed. One, because they just needed to win. Like they've been struggling. And 2, God, thank God we could beat USC at something. Just need a fucking middle finger to USC at something.
Be nice if we'd beat the shit out of them, but I guess I'll just take any run of the mill victory at this point. For sure.
Yeah, and it was good that because USC did this to them, and this was what kind of set off their bad stretch. Was USC did the reverse sweep to them in LA, and then they lost to UCLA, and they lost, So it's good to see them come back, do that back to them. And yeah, they're still ranked 11. Still have a shot to host. And they have 3 or 4 games left: Colorado, Utah, Arizona State, Washington. 3 out of 4 on the road. So
all very winnable though.
So everything in front of them. They're still going to accomplish all their goals. Besides maybe the Pac-12 championship, I don't think they do that.
No, I think that one's off the table at this point.
Yeah, they have 6 losses in Pac-12 play, so done for that. So good to see them get that win. I was watching it. I didn't watch I watched the last couple minutes of the Seahawks game. I watched the women's volleyball game, the volleyball game, WSU, right into the women's basketball game. I was just having a nice WSU Sunday. So saw a couple wins. the volleyball match was very stressful. My daughter was watching with me, and she would just watch the scores go up for either team. And then when it was in the 5th set, she was like, I kept saying, how many more do they need? How many more? She's like, 4, 3, like, and then she would get like real sad when she saw the other team would get a point. Yeah.
Volleyball's stressful, man. Like I get like the fact
so
that
stressful.
they get a point scored on everything. It's like every single serve feels like super important, and it's
you serve it in the net. Like that's the other team gets points.
You're like, oh fuck, it's like So it's high stress. It's a high stress event for me. So glad they could pull it out against USC. They'll be playing Colorado at Colorado at the same time that football is playing Colorado in Pullman. So the more you know.
Let's get the double Colorado double victories over Colorado would be great.
That would be rad. Let's do that.
All right. Well, if you want to follow us on socials, I'm at the Craig Powers on X, Twitter. At Craig Powers, Blue Sky, whatever on Blue Sky. Jeff's News Coug on there. He's Pod versus Everyone on Twitter.
Yep.
Jeff, of course, the Podcast versus Everyone newsletter.
Yep. Podcast vseveryone.substack.com. Subscribe there. You'll get the episodes first. It comes right to your inbox. Very exciting. And if we ever do any writing, maybe, then that'll come there too.
Yeah, do that. Well, Jeff, with that I will say, go fucking Cougs.
Go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated.
Yes.
Do that union shit.
Yep.
Support a union. If your bosses don't